Yeah, we want to get into this text message turmoil. New text messages between the FBI officials, Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. Katrina, they've been released. They suggest that then President Barack Obama had an interest in this probe as well. One of the texts said, POTUS wants to know everything we're doing. In one exchange, Strzok and Page were talking about the talking points that they were putting together for then FBI Director Jim Comey. They say talking points for D, meaning director. Page responds, yes, because POTUS wants to know everything we are doing. Your take on that, Katrina?
You know, Maria, this reminds me when President Barack Obama says that he had no idea that Hillary was operating a secret server, and then later we find out he was actually emailing her on it. I do believe that this does go straight to the top. We have to know the full context of these particular text messages. I also want to see the text messages on the other phones that were alluded to in this specific exchange. And it's truly unfortunate that we're here today having this discussion, knowing that there were individuals operating in the FBI against the sitting president of the United States and operating against him during the political campaign, and they still have jobs. Yeah. I think this is outrageous. I think that people are frustrated, and I don't think the media is paying enough attention, the mainstream media, to what's actually happening here, because people, the folks at home, are furious.
It's also the Graham memo, Dagan, the Grassley-Graham referral. They're referring criminal charges, basically. And they, Senators Chuck Grassley, Lindsey Graham, supporting key claims made in the FISA memo released last week by Devin Nunes. And Dagan, you mentioned this earlier. I've got to get your take on this, because in this story in the Wall Street Journal, the op-ed, that Mr. Steele received at least some of the information for his dossier from the Obama State Department.
Right. This is, and based on reporting by the Wall Street Journal editorial page, and Trey Gowdy, the congressman, alluded to this by name. This information was being fed into the State Department by Sidney Blumenthal. So Sidney Blumenthal, the dossier was funded indirectly by the Clinton campaign and the Democratic National Committee. Right. That was not disclosed to the FISA court. This letter from Senator Grassley and Senator Graham, they confirm that. This is something that the Democrats have pushed back on. Right. That it was not disclosed, the partisan nature of the dossier. However, some of this information in the dossier also, based on the reporting, came from Sidney Blumenthal, fed through the State Department. By the way, Sidney Blumenthal, remember, was barred from an official role at state by President Obama, but then was giving Hillary Clinton policy and political advice via that private email server. Remember that? So again, it's the Clinton campaign and Clinton cronies. They have their hands all over this. Right.
And so they paid for it. Some of the info came from them, and then they use that as a reason to wiretap an aide of Donald Trump.
But right. This is all, I mean, isn't what matters what the outcome of the investigation is? I mean, investigations get started from all sorts of reasons, from all sorts of claims all the time. I mean, regardless of how things come about, but isn't what matters is that you look into it and then make a decision about what its importance is?
Well, I mean, my point is the dossier that they were using, even though it was all unverified information, they used that to base a warrant from the FISA court, and they did that 4 times.
You're not supposed to submit anything to the FISA court that isn't verified, and the entire thing was unverified, and they wouldn't give the sources of it, and they didn't talk about the political nature or the funding. It stinks to high heaven. So investigate all you want, but let's investigate the investigators, because they haven't been. And if Hillary Clinton had been elected, it all would have been swept under the rug.
That's the problem. A warrant is not a conviction. So they're not convicting people based on.
But you're spying on on an American citizen,
which is obviously very serious. But there's also more. I mean, the FISA court in general, there's a lot more concerns. The warrants are usually not the thing that people get that concerned about, because there's a lot of spying.
In this case, it needs to be. In this case, it needs to be.
And Maria noticed this day one at the Democratic National Convention. We have talked about this, that the Democrats were pushing this narrative that the Trump campaign was colluding with the Russians to hack the election.
The book Shattered says day after the election they were going to go for that.
And this shows that it was indeed the Clintons, their money, and their cronies.
Right. And I knew it.
Pushing this narrative.
I knew it from day one because it was so obvious what they had done. We were at the Democratic National Convention, and Debbie Wasserman Schultz, it all became clear. Her emails were hacked. She had to step down. It was her convention. It was a huge story that her convention, the leader of the convention, has to step down. And in like an hour, that was off the front pages. The Democrats got all in line, and they started talking only about collusion between Trump and the Russians. And I thought, sitting there when we were live, we were doing the show live that week from Philly, and I'm thinking to myself, how is this possible? Debbie Wasserman Schultz just got pushed out. How did this catch fire so much that there's collusion between Trump and Russia? I don't get it. It was such a lie. It was so obvious, and that's how I knew it right away. And Katrina, you watched it happen as well.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, I'll have to disagree with one of your panelists. Apparently, spying on American citizens is not important, particularly to the mainstream media or the Democrats, considering how they've been fighting tooth and nail to get transparency on this issue alone. The House has sent a letter requesting the transcripts to the FISA hearings, and we need to see that, and we need to get to the bottom of that, because that's exactly what happened. American citizens were being spied on, and it was for political purposes. Hillary Clinton's email scandal was exonerated the exact same month that the Enterprise investigation was opened under the Trump-Russia collusion. I mean, you can't make this stuff up.
I mean, to be fair, he was a person of interest, Carter Page, because of past. So they did it because they could. Right?
They had a nose
this
under
is
the
even
tent.
before that, though, Maria.
This was, good way to put it. Katrina.
This was George Papadopoulos. Yeah. Peter Strzok opened up an Enterprise investigation, and they just tried to put people under the Trump-Russia collusion umbrella, and now it's blowing up in their faces.
One drunk guy in a bar.
It's terrible. Katrina, thank you. Katrina Pierson. We're going to keep following that.